All right, everyone. Welcome to the predictions for the top remaining free agents in the NFL, where I believe would be their best landing spots. I'm your host, Fire Knight 3. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to look at the remaining top free agents on the current 101 top free agents list provided by the NFL on their official website. And I'm going to tell you the top three landing spots I believe each player um, would best fit in, and my reasons as to why. And then on top of that, since as of right now there's only 22 on the list, I was kind of wanting to wait until there was only 20 left, but we're so close to the draft that I felt like this would probably be my best time to get this done. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the first candidate, the player that is spotted number two on the list as of right now, quarterback Cam Newton. He was just recently released by the Carolina Panthers, where they made it very obvious that they wanted to move on from him. Not just because they traded to get, or tra- actually, no, not just because they acquired Teddy Bridgewater off of free agency with that gigantic contract that they gave him, but also for the fact that they signed PJ Walker right behind him. It was clear they were ready to just let Cam go. They saw a probably better future with a younger quarterback that they believe had more of a ceiling at that point than Cam did, especially with a new head coach, Matt Rule from college. So, with that being the case, you're looking at one of the most dynamic dual threat quarterbacks you can ever ask for. But now you need to set him somewhere where he can be utilized. I will say this, a lot of people have predicted Cam Newton to go to the Patriots. And in my honest opinion, I don't think that's the best fit. Bill Belichick can use people's strengths absolutely well. But Cam Newton is the kind of strength that comes with a few cons that I don't think attracts Belichick that well. And despite everything, he may still demand a good amount of money. And I just don't think the Patriots would be, truly willing to work with someone like that, where they have a better chance with a different quarterback that could be more suited to Bill Belichick's system. I'm not saying that Belichick is not able to utilize a dual threat quarterback, and I'll actually prove that later, but I just don't see Cam as the right fit for the Patriots. Now, where I do see him as a great fit, first of all, Jacksonville. If the Jaguars can get Cam Newton, this would make the best quarterback competition they can ask for because Cam Newton's dual threat ability is a lot more elite than Gardner Minshew's is as of right now. I'm not downplaying him in any way. Minshew is a great scrambler, but Newton is the better dual threat. Now, as far as the receiving core, that's where problems come up. But that's something that they can definitely handle in the draft and potentially with some late free agent pickups that are going to come at a much cheaper cost. Um, but all in all, I just see Cam Newton as the better quarterback that can actually work so well in Jacksonville because the way that their offense is set up as of right now, I could see a dual threat quarterback handle that kind of pressure from the other teams in that division much better than Gardner Minshew can because Minshew is able to extend plays in the pocket and he can be a bit of a good runner. But if you have someone that is a guaranteed dual threat that everyone needs to keep their eye on no matter what happens, Newton fits in this one so well. You will see if he goes to Jacksonville, everybody on that front line in Houston, Indianapolis, and Tennessee go after Cam and completely forget about the other receivers. Despite the fact that they don't tend to be the best receivers, Cam fits so well. Two other choices that I have. The first one would be the Los Angeles Chargers. They've made the statement that they want to have Tyrod Taylor as their starter. And yes, I'm saying Tyrod, not Tyrod, because he himself has actually said that's how it's pronounced. So I'm going to go with what the actual player said. Anyway, I think Cam fits with the Chargers system so well because it was obvious, and I mean obvious, even in 2018 when they managed to make the playoffs, that Philip Rivers was not working well in Anthony Lynn's offense anymore. He helped them get to the playoffs. The year later, that same statue that got them there was one of the biggest reasons why they didn't make it in. No shade at Rivers. He's a great quarterback, but that system was no longer fitting him because they didn't have the offensive line to help. They had the receivers, they had the running backs, they had the tight ends, but it can't work with a statue. And Terod Taylor is very smart with the ball. He is a good dual threat. But if you put Cam Newton there, who likes to take chances, he can work in that system very well because that system can open up running lanes easy for dual threat. And they were kind of doing that actually for Philip Rivers unintentionally. I noticed a lot of times when they were playing that if Rivers was a better runner, he could have gotten first down after first down. So total waste on that end. But now he's in a place in Indy where being in the pocket more often is actually going to benefit him because they're built that way in Indianapolis versus LA, where I think Cam Newton would actually thrive. And then finally, I predict for Cam Newton today would be the Washington Redskins. And the biggest reason why is because there's just no quarterback competition as of right now there. The only QB that they have is Dwayne Haskins Jr.'s. Every single other QB on the roster has gone somewhere else as of right now. And they just acquired Kyle Allen from the Panthers in a trade. But I don't see Allen pushing for starter position anytime soon at all. Dwayne Haskins got thrown into the fire too fast, and he showed that he was absolutely not prepared. You got Ron Rivera there now. The Redskins got cap space. They need a good quarterback right now. And I say a bridge quarterback where Dwayne Haskins needs to be behind for at least another year and a half. Haskins cannot start yet, but get him behind a good quarterback for a year and a half, and Haskins will learn something. Newton is a dual threat. Haskins is not. But if you get teams very, very used to having to deal with a dual threat quarterback all the time, and Cam Newton, and especially in our division, I'm a Giants fan, so that's why I say our, then yes, he will accelerate the rebuilding process for the Redskins. And then once Newton, one way or another, ends up going as a backup or goes to another team, something like that, in a year or two, Dwayne Haskins comes in. He's not the dual threat we're used to, but he'll definitely be a lot better at scrambling. He'll definitely be a lot better at taking risks. He'll definitely be a lot better at finding the open holes for his running backs. So I honestly believe Cam Newton would be just perfect for this team, 100%. Now, the next person that's currently on that list is Jadeveon Clowney. And that's number 3, defensive end, used to play with the Seahawks. Jadeveon was at first asking for too much money at $20 million annually. And I'm sorry, Jadeveon, he is a difference maker when he's on the field. But when you have an injury history like his, there's absolutely no way that you're going to really help yourself. Just no way. So you have to bring down your asking price. And thankfully, Jadeveon has been doing that in the last few weeks. He's brought it down to where I still find it possible he could be re-signed by the Seahawks on a 1-year prove-it deal. But that's going to really depend on what the Seahawks do in the division. So they're the first team that I believe would be able to sign him. The other 2 teams that I believe would be great fits for Clowney that have the cap space and can definitely utilize him, first of all, would be Jacksonville. But I don't know, after everything that the Jaguars have been doing lately, if that would attract Clowney over there. But if he went there, he would definitely be a good fit in order to take over the spot that's been left empty, unfortunately, by Calais Campbell. He's not going to have the same impact. However, he will have an immediate impact regardless. So there's that. And then I also believe the Indianapolis Colts, such a great fit. They are focused on making sure their opposing quarterbacks and running backs suffer, and especially in the screenplays. If you put Clowney in the Colts defense, even the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry in the backfield would have a problem with this guy because they already have Justin Houston on that line. They already have Darius Leonard in the inside linebacker area. You got a defense that can squish people, that can suffocate quarterback plays. They need help in their secondary. No question about that. But as far as that front line and that linebacker group, if you add Clowney to it, good night. The Colts could definitely compete for a division title. Next up, number 14, quarterback, Jameis Winston, formerly of the Buccaneers. It is clear as day he is not going to be returning to Tampa, so I'm not even going to try to entertain that idea. What I am going to try to entertain instead is the idea that he could be on these three teams. First one, again, I'm going with Jacksonville. Jacksonville has let a lot of pieces go. They need a lot of help in just about every position group. So why not throw Jameis Winston into the mix for Jacksonville at quarterback? Him and Minshew, I like that kind of duo. It's actually very, very. It perfectly fits Jacksonville's offensive scheme where they want the quarterback to make the decisions. Now, asking Jameis Winston to make good decisions is like asking a coin to land on heads every time you flip it. It will do it, but not all the time. And it just depends on how many times you trust it if it's going to really do so. He is the coin flip. But what I believe is if you put him there and you have less reliable receivers than what he had in Tampa, maybe he makes a decision to take the risks less. And he utilizes the pockets that he can end up getting. He utilizes Leonard Fournette better, and he actually helps the rest of the team thrive because he is a great locker room presence. So put all that together, and he's a good fit for Jacksonville. Another team I would also believe would be a good fit would be Washington. Again, basically the same reasons that I put out there for Cam Newton to be in there. It's kind of the same reasons I go with Jameis. So I'm not going to reiterate all that. The third one, however, that I believe would be the best option for Jameis 100% is New England. Jameis Winston as a Patriot. Don't tell me Bill Belichick is not the coach that knows how to get the mistakes out of there. He can utilize this guy's ability to take risks, but make sure that those risks actually provide more benefits than they do turnovers. And if they get Winston on, I say, a 1-year deal, and then get him some reliable receivers, more than likely through the draft, New England will once again dominate in the AFC East. Despite the fact that the Bills, the Dolphins look a lot better this year so far. The Bills more than anybody. I'm not going to include the Jets because they were kind of quiet this year in free agency. And I think that's kind of more the smart move for them right now. Just work with what you got and give them more experience in your schemes. So that way, maybe they can actually grow. But I'm not going to say the Jets are ready to take over the division just yet. I see the Bills are in the hot seat right now to do that. But Jameis Winston with some good receivers in New England under Bill Belichick, I think is a great combo. And yes, I am actually giving advice to the New England Patriots, which I'm pretty sure not just every one of you Giants fans out there will hate, but I'm pretty sure everyone else will too. if you're not a Patriots fan. Maybe even some of you Patriots fans too. So, million and up, but nothing more than 10 on a 1 year deal at the very least. The three teams I'd see that would be perfect for Griffin. First would be the Cincinnati Bengals. They need help defensively. 100%. They need run stuffers and they need people that can go after the quarterback. All you have is Geno Atkins. That's literally it. I can't name anyone else on that defense right now that could do the same thing. You just added DJ Reader, but we need to see how he works on that team. You add Everson Griffin, now I can actually take their defense a little bit more seriously with the other additions that they've made. So I think Griffin would be a great pick, and Cincinnati has the money to pay him. The same thing can be said for the Jets, who I think if they add him would push them a little bit up in that AFC East division to actually compete. And then finally, the Texans. They got rid of Jadeveon Clowney last year, and their defensive front kind of proved that without him, they're not going to be able to make as much noise. You add Griffin to the Texans, however, and that defense will kind of come back to where it was a couple years ago. And sorry if I'm having to interrupt, but I just have to make a quick little text right now. Next up on the list is going to be number 36, cornerback Logan Ryan, formerly of the Titans. So, what do I think is going to be the best landing spots for him? Honestly, once I explain them, they're all going to make 100% sense. Because this is a corner that knows what he's doing. My first place that I would send him to is right back to Tennessee. He thrived there. Under Mike Vrabel, he was a great corner. Should have been on the top 10 list of corners last year, in my honest opinion, because of the way that he played. And I'm not just saying that because he picked off Tom Brady to eliminate the Patriots from the playoffs. He did a phenomenal job everywhere he was. And if you put him back in, the Titans have the money to pay him on, I would say, a 2, maybe 3-year contract. And not as much as he was when they first got him, but he definitely earned it. So get him back on the team. He obviously thrived. I can also see him making a turn to the Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia used to be his defensive coordinator when both of them were in New England, and they just traded away Darius Slay. Why not put him in a position where he can be with someone that he already knows how he operates, that he thrived under, and in a division where you got quarterbacks that know how to sling the ball, but not all of them are the most accurate. And I'm specifically pointing at both Mitch Trubisky and Kirk Cousins. Cousins is one of those players that he can get in the clutch, but it's very rare. And Mitch Trubisky, he's just not good at making decisions. He makes the right decisions that don't turn the ball over most of the time, but they're not the decisions that help the team actually score. So if you put Logan Ryan in there, you already did something to help you up against the Vikings and the Bears, especially with the Vikings trading away Stephon Diggs, and you get someone that can pick off Aaron Rodgers a little bit more often, since he still doesn't have a good receiving core as far as I'm concerned. So get him to Detroit, and you got yourself a pretty contentious looking defense once you add a couple more pieces to it. And then finally, the one where he doesn't have really any connection I can speak of, the Denver Broncos. You add Ryan to the Broncos, and Oh, yes. That defense is going to be freaking scary this year. I mean, they already added AJ Boye. They already traded for Jarrell Casey. They re-signed Shelby Harris. And they're going to get Bradley Chubb back from injury this year. You have a linebacking secondary defensive front that is so powerful right now. It's the only defense in that division that I believe can actually give Kansas City problems right now. And if they, with the money that they have right now, add Logan Ryan to it, that that that's going to be the hardest place for anyone to throw a ball, despite the fact it's in thinner air. So yeah, get Ryan attached to the Broncos as far as I'm considered. John Elway, make it happen. Number 42, offensive tackle Jason Peters, formerly of the Eagles. I don't see him returning to the team. I believe that despite the fact that they have money that they could pay this guy for, they're ready to let him explore. They're allowing him to spread his wings, no pun intended. And Peters, honestly, I want to see him somewhere else and still thrive. I want to see him really prove to everyone that his age is not a factor. It's not the fact the Eagles had one of the best offensive lines in football for the last few years. It's the fact that Peters was one of the leaders that helped make it that way. And if he joins someone else, he proves it. So, where are the best places I believe Peters can go to? First place is Houston. I mean, hello, Houston's one of their biggest problems right now is their O-line. They can't protect Watson for crap. And if you can add Peters there, that line solidifies immediately. Next, New York Giants. I want our offensive line to improve, not because I want Daniel Jones to be protected more often. I actually want Daniel Jones to use his mobility a little bit more because he is a very good mobile quarterback, as it turns out. So why not help make lanes for Saquon Barkley? That's where we were struggling last year. Our O-line was not making lanes. Our O-line was not pushing the pile to give Barkley room on the other side. If we can get that kind of leadership from Peter specifically to improve our line and then eventually trade Nate Solder, because I think he's been a bust for us so far. If we can get that done, then our team is actually going to progress a lot faster. And Jones will become smarter and more protective of the football because he's actually going to have time to get it done. Then there's the Titans. You get Peters there since they just lost Jack Conklin in free agency to the Browns. That's the best way you can plug that hole right back up. Like, oh, we lost Jack Conklin. We got money. We can bring in Peters. Boom. Back to number one in your division immediately. And yes, I'm saying that despite the fact the Texans were number one, but the way that they were playing the second half of the year, the Titans were the number one in that division as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I digress. Peters has plenty of teams actually that he can improve, but those are the three that I think are his best fits. Next up, number 56 on the list, cornerback Darqueze Dennard, formerly of the Bengals. He was supposed to sign with Jacksonville, but then the contract fell through due to financial issues from everything that I've seen so far. So he became a free agent once again. And honestly, I'm a little happy that he didn't sign with them because Jacksonville is just not acting right. So I'm not going to, want him to go somewhere that he's not going to, feel well in, that he's going to probably demand a trade from, like probably even before halfway the season goes through. So three places I think would actually be much better fit for Dennard would be, first off, the Washington Redskins. They need help in their secondary without question. Adding Kendall Fuller was a smart move, and getting rid of Josh Norman was a smart move, but the secondary still needs help. Darqueze Dennard immediately plugs up a hole that can make the Redskins completely competitive on the defensive side of the ball. You can also say the same thing for the Jets. They had to release Tremaine Johnson. They really didn't have a choice because that was a gigantic flop. And it wasn't anyone's fault, to be perfectly honest. Trumaine Johnson just got injured too often to where they just couldn't use him. And I mean, we've seen what Johnson can do when he's healthy, but why spend another year with someone that you haven't been able to get onto the field at that point? They needed to let Johnson go and thrive somewhere else at that point. And kind of, get a 1 year prove it deal from somebody else and not owe so much. You get to Darqueze Dennard there, you fill up that hole that you unfortunately lost for 2 years, and you end up being competitive in your division. Finally, Minnesota Vikings. Dennard would thrive there, being next to Anthony Harris, being next to Andrew Sandejo. I don't believe he's still. Yeah, he is still with the team, actually, if I'm correct. But either way, you get Dennard into the Viking system, Mike Zimmer's going to make him thrive, no question about it. And I believe that he would actually be very happy in that division. Next up, number 58, cornerback, Eli Apple, formerly of the Saints and Giants. So, Apple proved that he can actually be a good corner in a sense. He's not someone that you want on a team's number one speed demon. You want him on someone's number one reliable receiver, the person with the best hands. And he proved with the Saints that he actually knows how to do that. But the Saints is not a good fit for him at this point. So I would say the best 3 landing spots for Eli Apple. First, Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely need him for what they have to deal with annually. Jacksonville Jaguars, he would be actually a nice fit for where Dennard just didn't work. The Jaguars can get him for cheaper, and he ends up improving a secondary that lost quite a few pieces. And then finally, Tampa Bay. Yes, I really believe he would thrive with the Buccaneers, specifically because if he is there with Sean Bunting Murphy and everyone else there under Bruce Arians, woo, man, and with the receivers that division has, he will help. He'll probably the only receiver in that division, I think, that will actually bully Apple a lot would be Julio Jones. No downgrade on Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas doesn't bully receivers. He just proves them wrong. When I say bully a receiver, I mean someone who, even if the receiver caught the ball, you could still grab the ball out. And that's Julio Jones, no question. Thomas, he just proves them wrong by being the one to catch the ball and not letting the corner even have a chance at it. So Apple still would be a huge asset, especially because if he ends up in Tampa, then he'll already have experience going against Michael Thomas in practice. So, and with everyone else, of course, in that division, Apple would just be a good fit. Next up, number 62, running back, Carlos Hyde, formerly of the Texans. I don't know why the Texans are not wanting to get this guy back on board. He had his first 1,000-yard season, and he proved he's a very reliable halfback. Why did they not re-sign this guy for a good amount of money? I don't understand it. So, since Houston is currently under the tyrannical rule of Mr. B.O.B. up there, I'm not even going to try to get Hyde back in there. Instead, let's put him on teams that can use him and would actually thrive with him. First up, Pittsburgh Steelers. They need help at running back position. James Conner turned out not to be the answer. Benny Snell is not an answer. No running back on that team right now is a good answer. You know who would be a good answer, and at a cheap price nonetheless? Carlos Hyde. You get him next to Ben Roethlisberger, next to Devlin Duck Hodges, and potentially, if the Steelers end up drafting a new QB, which I would actually advise them to do so, then you actually end up with someone super reliable that can double as a great receiver. Say he would be a great fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ronald Jones is their only reliable running back right now, but he's not a good halfback. He is that kind of a power back. and they don't have a good answer for um, play action to the running back. They don't have a good answer for screenplays. They don't have a good answer for just straight up catching a ball with a runner. Hyde would fit, and they can afford him. Finally, the Los Angeles Rams. They just let Gurley go. They owe a lot of money to a lot of people, but at least they have some cap space right now that they can work with. That if they sign Hyde, they can immediately fix up the running back problem. Because despite the fact that I believe Malcolm Brown should be their starter, he thrived by being quote unquote behind everyone. Brown needs to prove that he is their number one, but he doesn't have good competition. If you put Hyde there, you get the best of both, so that way you can have a dual running back problem for the rest of your division. So those are three that I believe would be great for Hyde. Next up, number 66 on the list, defensive end Marcus Golden, formerly of the New York Giants. He had a 10.5 sack season. He proved that he definitely has what it takes to be a good defensive end, someone who can put pressure on quarterbacks all the time. He's just asking a little too much for, a contract. But I still think that he could return to the Giants if he realizes that you only proved it once. You didn't prove beforehand that you can be this good consistently. So if he gets another 1-year prove it deal from the Giants, and we definitely have the money to afford it, just please ask for a cheaper price. We can gladly add him back, and he'll gladly prove that he is if he shows that. And if he does, then we can extend him. But for right now, the other two teams I believe would be good fits for Golden would be for the Jaguars to try to plug up a lot of holes that they ended up creating for themselves, and for the Texans, same reason. I've explained why they need defensive help on the front end specifically. So, and especially with the kind of offensive line that the Colts have, you need that, and the Titans, you need help at defensive end. Golden would help. Next up, number 71, offensive tackle, DeMar Dotson, formerly of the Buccaneers. I believe Dotson needs to return to Tampa Bay. That is his best landing spot. The fact that you get the chance to protect Tom Brady, of all people, why would you not go back? He is a great offensive lineman. He actually helped Jameis get a lot of the stats that he got. Not the interceptions, but the other stats. But yes, Dotson would be a great fit to return to Tampa. If he doesn't return, then I suggest that he goes either to Houston if he sees it as a viable option, because Deshaun Watson is definitely another worthy quarterback to protect, or get him over to the Minnesota Vikings. On the Vikings, on that O-line, to improve it, would help Kirk Cousins, help the receiving core, help the running backs. They need a little bit of improvement on the offensive line right now. Bradbury was a great start last year from the draft. Now, if they can do that with free agency and the draft this year too, the Vikings have a chance to potentially be the winner of their division, even up against Green Bay. And Dotson would be a nice little piece to fit in there. Next up, number 78, defensive end, Michael Bennett, formerly of the Cowboys. I don't see him returning to the Cowboys at all. Their defensive front is still very, very powerful. And I know for a fact that more than likely they're probably going to end up adding to it instead of with free agency with the draft. So if Bennett, who did show that he can still put pressure up there, wants to thrive somewhere, maybe have a chance of getting a Super Bowl, 3 teams I suggest him to be on. The first one would be with the Minnesota Vikings. And of course, that's because of losing Everson Griffin. I just believe Bennett would actually plug up that hole very well. But they still would need a little bit of defensive help in the front, maybe at the linebacker or a defensive tackle. But still. Also, the Philadelphia Eagles, to replace some of the pieces that they just lost, if he gets there, if he returns to Philly, then he has a chance at getting another ring. And then finally, Seattle Seahawks. He thrived there. He knows that system. He returns to Pete Carroll, and he could potentially help that team get another ring. So he has ring potential with all three spots that I believe would be great fits for him. Next up, number 80, cornerback, Prince Amukamara, formerly of the Bears. He needs to return to the Bears. That's where he thrives. That's where he needs to stay. If he goes anywhere else, he may not fit well in their systems. But there are two other spots that I believe if he did go there, he could still have a presence and he could adapt to their defenses very well to the point where he can actually be disruptive to other teams' offenses. The first of those would be the Baltimore Ravens. They have money, and I don't know why. That team should have been cap strapped, and I don't know how on earth they have money right now. And they can afford a Mukamara on a cheap 1-year contract where he has a chance at getting a Super Bowl ring with one of the best defenses I've ever seen built ever. And very, very well managed by Dale Wink Martindale and by head coach John Harbaugh. Please put a Mukamara there. He will help, especially after they lost Eric Weddle to retirement. Also, the Atlanta Falcons. I haven't mentioned them that many times, but that's because they just don't have that much money to even speak of. Amukamara not only helps with a terrible secondary that can't stop getting hurt, but they can afford him on a very cheap 1-year deal where he can actually help in one of the toughest offensive divisions you can ask for. So, Falcons, Ravens, or Bears, Amukamara needs to be a part of one of them. Next, number 85, safety, Clayton Geathers, formerly of the Colts. I think if he returns to the Colts, he'll be just fine. He did an okay job there. I don't want to see him, try to prove that he's more than what he is right now. He's not a number one corner or safety, excuse me. He's not a number one safety. He's not a great tackler as far as I'm considered, but Geathers is someone who can actually lock down on tight ends and on running backs, and especially in play action. So the Colts, their defensive system works well enough where if he's there, he'll definitely provide some good balance. Two other spots where I think he can thrive. These are the defensive masters I believe can make Geathers grow and become even better at safety. That would be either the Denver Broncos with Vic Fangio or with the Vikings with Mike Zimmer. You put him on one of those two teams for a very cheap deal that both teams can afford, then Geathers is going to help them become even not much more powerful in their divisions because their divisions have quarterbacks and receivers that make it tough for anyone to defend against. Geathers can definitely add. Next up, we have cornerback at number 86. Cornerback Daryl Worley, formerly of the Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are going to want to bring him back. They've been recycling corners and safeties so much that I don't see it in their system to re-sign Worley. Instead, he needs to go to places where he can excel. A few places I believe would be good for him. Jaguars by getting him on a cheap contract. Vikings getting him on a cheap contract. Or the Eagles. If the Eagles add Worley, they can kind of help plug up some of the secondary issues they ended up having, and especially after letting Malcolm Jenkins leave. I'm not saying Worley can replace Jenkins' production. I'm just saying Worley would be a good fit for the Eagles. Next up, number 94, safety, Eric Reed, formerly of the Panthers. He proved he definitely still has some power in there. And the three teams that I think would be great fits for him, Atlanta, because of the whole injury problem where they need more durable players. Reed has shown his durability, and he definitely would fit in that locker room, no question about it. Carolina Panthers, if he returns there, he already kind of knows the system, but now that they're going to be under new head coach, Matt Rule, I don't know, but Reed brings veteran presence. He brings leadership. He's someone that if the new defensive scheme doesn't work out the first few weeks, he's someone who can help make everyone adapt to it to make it progress. So I think he would be a good fit there. And then finally, Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, they already have Cameron Hayward. They already have Derwin James. Their secondary is definitely fearful, especially with the addition of Chris Harris Jr. But they still need additions. You're going up against the freaking Chiefs twice a year. You're going up against the Denver Broncos, who I believe can get better at offense, provided they add the right pieces, more likely through the draft. You're going up against the Raiders, who are unpredictable. You need someone who can seek stuff out, add immediate leadership presence at the safety position specifically. Chris Harris Jr. will already provide leadership, but you add Eric Reed, and then you solidify a defense that can actually compete and possibly bring them back to the playoffs. So those are three for him. Number 96 is going to be the most unique of everyone here. Outside linebacker Terrell Suggs, T-Sizzle, formerly of the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs. This is someone who would require a 1-year contract to try to add another ring. But I'm going to actually say 4 possible landing spots for Suggs, and there will be a reason once I get to him. The first, if he wants to chase a Super Bowl ring, go to the Ravens. Solidify that defense even stronger, and the Ravens can afford him because they have the cap space. They have a need at linebacker. You add him. I don't think there's anyone that's going to be able to score more than potentially 21 points if they're lucky against that defense if Suggs is put in there. The Eagles, you put Suggs there, the Eagles will definitely have a chance at returning not only to the playoffs, but also to the Super Bowl. Suggs can definitely solidify a defense that is in need. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you add him there, the Buccaneers immediately, and that's not disregarding Tom Brady, the Buccaneers will immediately become one of the top teams in the NFC South, which is hard to say with the Saints in there. But if you add Suggs to the Bucs, woo, that is going to kill it. That's going to make him a threat. The fourth option, he retires as a Super Bowl champion. Suggs has done so much in so much time. He, at this point, I think, should just retire champion. He became a linebacker that won with 2 different teams in the Super Bowl, the Ravens and now the Chiefs. You've proven yourself. You were with the Ravens for so long. You went 1 year with the Cardinals, and that clearly didn't work. But then you signed with the Chiefs at the right time, and you helped them get that Super Bowl ring. At this point, I think Suggs would be the one person on this entire list that honestly just needs to retire, champion, and potentially at some point become a defensive coordinator for a team, or at least somewhere along the defensive coaching staff he needs to be a part of. And if he doesn't become a defensive coordinator or linebacker coach or anything like that for the Ravens, then I'll be surprised. Next up, number 97, defensive tackle Damon Harrison Snacks, formerly of the Lions. If he returns to the Lions, I think that's a great fit for him. He definitely proved that he has the ability to stuff runs, which was a huge problem in that division, specifically in the NFC North. But I think he can still improve if he's under different coaching staff. If he's with the Texans, he helps J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless. And they need the help, especially now that they also lost DJ Reader. So you add that in there, you add Snacks, who has the experience, then I think you're actually going to be in a much better spot. But a place where Harrison has a chance to thrive and potentially see the playoffs, maybe even a Super Bowl, the Seattle Seahawks. They can afford him on a cheap deal, and he would fit so perfectly in Pete Carroll's defense. It just makes sense as far as I'm considered. He'll plug up the holes that they need to be plugged up. And in practice, you're going up against one of the most run-happy teams in the league. So he's going to have so much experience. This guy can help. Number 98, linebacker Michael Kendricks, formerly of the Seahawks himself. I don't see the Seahawks re-signing him, but Kendricks, for the little time that he was able to at least see some field, even in preseason, he proved that he still has his skills. It's just that that whole scandal being behind him is going to make him very unattractive to a few teams, and the ACL tear that he suffered just made it worse. But he's someone that anyone can get on a cheap deal as far as I'm considered. Three teams that need him. Jaguars, I've already explained that too many times. Panthers, you add him, he can definitely plug up holes on short passes and in play action up against tight ends and receivers. He is that good. But a really good fit, I also would say, would be the Cleveland Browns. They need help at linebacker right now, as far as I'm considered, especially after losing Christian Kirksey. So if you put Kendricks there, and they're willing to sign controversial players. I mean, they've made that obvious with Odell Beckham Jr., with Kareem Hunt. I mean, what more can you say? Just go ahead and throw this guy into the mix at that point. Next up, safety Tony Jefferson, formerly of the Ravens. I don't see the Ravens re-signing him. I see him moving on to another team where he can still thrive, make that team super competitive. The three that I believe are his best options: Detroit, Matt Patricia and his defense with Tony Jefferson in there and his veteran leadership will absolutely make that team thrive on the defensive side of the ball. Same thing can be said with the Indianapolis Colts. Um, if he takes over the spot that was left open by Clinton Geathers, he improves that spot actually. He will help them stay competitive in their division. Also, to the Vikings. They unfortunately lost a lot of defensive ends. Mackenzie Alexander, Trey Waynes. You add Jefferson in there, not only do you get veteran presence, but you get someone who can still produce, who will basically make it as if one of those voids never got emptied. So Jefferson to those three teams would be a great fit. The next two, I actually have a bit of a problem with that they're even on the top 101 list because I believe there are a few players that are actually better than them, and I'll even include them in this. First up, number 100, running back Chris Thompson, formerly of the Redskins. I don't see him returning to that team. He needs to be on a different team that is actually going to better utilize him. Three teams that I believe are his best options. The Bengals, despite the fact they have Joe Mixon, who is one of the better running backs, actually, if they have a second one in there, then they open up more of their playbook, especially for Zach Taylor to utilize. If you bring him over to the Dolphins, yes, they signed Jordan Howard in free agency. However, Howard is the power running back. Thompson can be the catching running back. You add that kind of dynamic duo, and you get yourself a little Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara effect that the Saints were able to take advantage of. And in their division, they can use that. Finally, add him to the Titans. Make him take over the spot that Dion Lewis was supposed to serve, but he can actually thrive under Mike Vrabel, and he still has the ability to also be a power back, so he can still fool defenses that way. So they see Thompson on the field, they're like, oh, they're going to go for some kind of screen pass or something like that, or maybe they're going to have a draw play or something like that. No, they have him on the field, and all of a sudden, big hole opens up in the middle, and the defense is like, wait a second, that's not Derrick Henry. Yeah, it's Chris Thompson. He can do the same thing, homie. And then finally on their list as of right now is number 101 tight end Jordan Reed, formerly of the Redskins as well. I don't see him staying there. He has suffered too many concussions, but that's because he's in one of the most brutal divisions in all of sports, not just football. The NFC East, we hate each other. We go out to kill each other, basically. So he needs to be in a division where he can thrive because he has the skill set, but maybe not as much hate running around everywhere, but then again, you can't really say that with any division except maybe the AFC East. No shade, but still. Um, First off, he would be a great fit for the Cincinnati Bengals. If he goes to the Bengals, he provides Joe Burrow or whoever's going to become the starting quarterback over there, or even Andy Dalton for that matter, a great safety net. Because, yeah, re-signing Tyler Eifert was a good idea, but you need another tight end, and I think Reed would be a great fit. I also believe Reed would probably thrive under Bill Belichick and the Patriots. He will not replace Rob Gronkowski, but he will give the starting quarterback an actual good tight end for receiving purposes. Because Ryan Izzo was not the answer, period. And Ben Watson kind of proves why he retired. And then finally, Green Bay. If the Packers land Reed, Aaron Rodgers has a better tight end to work with than he did with Jimmy Graham. Now, that's the entire list that are still open on the top 101 free agency list from the NFL. However, I definitely believe there are a few players that are free agents right now that should have been on this list, and I don't understand why they weren't. The first one was Lamar Miller, formerly of the Texans. He should have been on this list because he proved year after year that he is a number one running back. I don't see how no one was actually picking up on that. He should have. And yeah, he got injured. He wasn't able to play at all last year. That's why the Texans got the running backs they got, including Carlos Hyde. But Miller is still great. If Miller signs anywhere, because he made it obvious he's not going to re-sign with the Texans, if he signs anywhere that can definitely make him a great fit, he would thrive in Miami. With the Dolphins, that is what you call a dual threat running back. He can do it all there. Someone else that I believe should have been on the list, but for some reason didn't make it, I would definitely say, well, as of right now, I can't even think of anyone else. But as far as I'm concerned, Lamar Miller, that was the one that was bothering me more than anybody, to be perfectly honest. He should have been on the list, no question about it, but I have no control over that stuff. But as of right now, I can't really say anyone else that's a free agent that I believe should have been on the list, and definitely needs to be given a ton of looks at as of right now. But, oh wait, there is someone. Running back Devontae Freeman, formerly of the Falcons. He went to the Super Bowl with them, and he was part of the reason that offense was actually doing as good as it was, gave them that 25-point lead. Then the Falcons, for some reason, forgot that they had running backs. Freeman, despite the down 2 years he had, is still a viable running back. And a team that I think would be a good fit for Freeman would definitely have to be the Houston Texans. Add him there, and boom, you get yourself something reliable behind David Johnson in case anything happens to him. I mean, I'm not going to say reliable, because they both have injury history, but you need some kind of insurance there. So that's why I believe he would be a good fit. And at that, I'm just going to stick it right there. And if you guys think that there's anyone that I may have missed that's a free agent that definitely needs to be given a lot more looks at, if there's any that you disagree with as far as landing spots, if there are any that you think have better landing spots possible, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. But I wanted to make sure I got this out before the draft. And with everything said and done, thank you for watching. This is Fahrenheit 3, signing out.